Anglo American Platinum released its annual results today. For the 12 months ended December, the mining company reported headline earnings per share up 95% at R28.93. The mining house says its annual production of PGMs rose by 4% and it's boasting net cash position of R2.9 billion. Shareholders are also in for a treat, with the dividend payout ratio rising to 40% of headline earnings compared with 30% before. We cross now to my colleague Arabile Gumede, who's standing by at the JSE with AngloPlat CEO Griffith.
I don't know about you, Nombu, but that in itself is a stellar set of earnings, and one perhaps that the mining sector itself would keenly be watching and interested in ensuring that it is a sustainable pathway, not just for Anglo American Platinum, but certainly for a lot of other mining companies as well. So let's open the discussion up then. You've put through the numbers, including the likes of revenue. They're increasing to 74.6 billion in that 2018 period. Let's chat to the CEO of Anglo American Platinum, Griffith. Mr. Griffiths, thank you so much for the time. It has been perhaps a time where you've weathered every single storm possible. You've turned out to be lean and mean. You've done away with a few. You've brought in a few entities and assets as well, and made sure that the entity can run as smoothly as possible. Let's talk about that entire process and how you fared and how you think the process has gone. Could it have gone any better?
Look, I think you absolutely point out the last 5 or 6 years have been an incredibly tough journey. I mean, if you just think we had debt of 15 billion rand at the end of 2014, having just come off a 6-month or 5-month strike, very, very difficult when half of the industry and certainly half of Anglo Platinum was loss-making. If that's the kind of level that we've now come through over the last 4 years to be in a net cash position, and as you pointed out, we needed to shut down mines, we needed to put some mines on care and maintenance. We had large-scale retrenchments back in 2013, 2014, but we needed to do that to put the company back into good shape. And now we're able to talk about the best returns to shareholders in the last 10 years. We've now 3 billion rand returning to shareholders, and the company's in a net cash position. I think it shows the very, very hard work that we needed to do over the last 4, 5, 6 years is really paying off now. We're spending money again on growth. We're starting to think about the next big wave of growth, and we're spending on a lot of short, fast payback projects that are certainly adding a lot of value to the company.
Let's talk about that dividend policy, switching that from 30 to 40%. I'm not saying there's any investors going to be angry with that, but certainly what was the thinking around increasing that? Was it just for the whole sense of patience and waiting for the company to come to this point?
So last year when we started introducing dividends for the first time again, in 10 years, we introduced dividends again. I think we wanted to be a bit more cautious as we started introducing it, because what you don't want to do, having been out of the market for a number of years, now introducing it only to find yourself that you've overextended. So what we wanted to do is just be a little bit cautious, but also remember it was only a year or two ago where we were still very, very uncertain about the PGM industry itself and where prices were going to go. What is platinum looking like? What is palladium, rhodium? So we didn't really know. So there was uncertainty about the underlying cash generation of the business. And many of the things that we've done over the last number of years have been about selling assets and making money through a couple of different ways. But it wasn't really solid underlying cash performance. And now what we've seen is we've got a lot more confidence in the underlying cash generation ability of the company. We've got a lot more confidence in where we see the market, and as a result of a combination of those, we now feel more confident, also given where the cash position of the company is, that we can now return more cash to shareholders.
It's certainly a policy that will certainly bode well, I suppose, in the long run as well, not just in share price, but really with regards to surety around the company and the business as well. Investment into the rest of your assets here. Now, Mogalakwena has become, or has been really, the most stellar of your mines. Yes, a whole lot of that based on things like mechanization and whatnot. Are you looking for mines like that? Is that your aim right now, to look into that space and to get the best out of the current assets you do have?
I think that's a combination of what we're looking for. So firstly, we've got the best assets in the industry. We own 40% of the world's PGM reserves, and so we know we own the best assets. And it was for that reason that when we had assets at the top of the cost curve, we were saying we shouldn't be scratching around with assets like that. And it was for that reason that we sold those assets on, not because they couldn't make money, but because we had much better options in our own assets. We also could see in our own assets that these assets were not being run to their best potential.
Yeah.
And so our focus was really for the first couple of years is just focus on what you've got, what you've already invested capital in, and make sure they deliver what they're supposed to deliver.
Sure.
And for that reason, we were able to see over 6 years, we increased Mogalakwena from 300,000 platinum ounces to just under 500,000.
Yeah.
And that's not by spending a lot of capital, it's just by running these assets well. But now that we've got ourselves to this point, we can see both further improvements on the existing assets as we focus on what we're calling P101.
Yeah.
But also we have been doing the studies now for the past year on seeing what the next potential growth could be. So rather than going out and buying some different assets, by owning the best assets, we can see now what that further growth potential looks like. One of the challenges we have at Mogalakwena is we've got quite a few different options. And it's those different options that we're busy studying now so that we can be very clear about what the best value option is and to make sure we don't make a mistake by being too hasty.
Best headache to have, though, right, at a point in time like this. How do you project that beyond just now? That's one. And two, how has Eskom's, sort of fears and issues of late really affected the business?
So Mogalakwena, we know, can improve its underlying performance just from its own business.
Yeah.
And so what we've said to the market today is as we've grown to 500, we think over the next couple of years we can go maybe to 550,000 platinum ounces. And more than that if you double into PGM ounces. But then there's also the expansion potential. Now we don't quite know what that looks like just given that there are so many options. But that could easily be another 250,000 or 500,000 PGM ounces. So the options look good, but of course it does depend on what the studies look like, and it does depend on what the project outcomes look like when you finish studying it. Look, Eskom, I think, is a headache and a challenge for every single South African. Whether you're a small business or a large business, without electricity you can't function. Yeah. During the load shedding of last week, we lost 14,000 platinum ounces and about double that, about 30,000 PGM ounces.
Yeah.
Now, it's not lost yet because we can still make that up because we cut back on our smelters. So the mines have continued producing. But of course, that can't continue indefinitely. Yeah. And this could still be a real problem for every single one of us in South Africa. We can't operate without electricity.
CEO of Anglo American, Mark Rufani, saying that it is a big risk to the entity. You're certainly going to agree with that sentiment as well. I'd be remiss, though, however, if I didn't ask you about budget this coming Wednesday as well. Perhaps your hopes to come out of that, your thoughts, anything you perhaps would like Tito Mboweni to particularly be, mention as well in that budget.
Look, I'm the same as every other individual. We hope he's not going to increase taxes. We hope from every business that he's not going to increase taxes. And I think we're looking for ways for the country to be more efficient and looking for what direction the country can set to attract investment so that actually we grow ourselves out of this problem. Yeah. And then I think we are looking for guidance as to what's going to be done at Eskom and some of the other SOEs. There are still some challenges facing the country. But certainly we've got a president that's really, really focused on helping secure growth in this country because it's growth that'll create additional taxes and it's growth that'll create employment. The president understands that. Certainly the finance minister understands that. Certainly the minister looking after our troubled SOEs understand that. So we've got the right leadership, I think, that can take us through this with every single one of us behind them and supporting what needs to be done in South Africa.
Positive sentiments coming through, I guess stemming from the results as well, certainly helps. But really appreciate your time this afternoon as well. Chris Griffiths is the CEO there of Anglo American Platinum. As I said, a good set of results coming through from him with regards to that, speaking a lot about that growth picture, which doesn't necessarily look that great even for 2018 in itself. So we'll continue to see how things fare. And Tito Mboweni does have that tough task of relaying that message on Wednesday, just with regards to South Africa's budget. How are things set to go for the remainder of the next year? But as you've said, the results out of Anglo American Platinum looking good. That's all from me, Nompu. Back to you in studio.